Welcome to episode 17 of the Missing Pieces podcast. If this is your first time watching here on YouTube or listening anywhere that podcasts are available, Missing Pieces is the podcast where I discuss my life and Lego and anything else that interested me in the last week. And I just want to start this episode off by thanking everyone that's taken the time out of their day to sit here and watch this or listen to anything that I had to talk about. It really means a lot to me. It also means a lot to me, everyone that's left a review. I've been checking Apple Podcasts and we are up to 52 reviews. And I'm going to read the most recent one that we got on Wednesday. This is actually from Steve. He says, listening at work, a longtime brickitect fan, didn't end up watching the Missing Pieces videos on YouTube, but happy to listen while at work. My daughter and I have been wanting to kickstart our Lego YouTube channel for quite some time, but thanks to episode 3, I'm going to just do it as you've challenged. Thanks for the content. Keep it up. Well, thank you, Steve, for leaving the review on there, and thank you to everyone else that left a review as well. If you do want to support this podcast, if you enjoy what I do here, you can leave a review there. I think Spotify is the other place that most people listen to this podcast. If you also want to support us financially, the reviews are free, of course. If you want to support us financially, Patreon is the place to do that. We've had a Patreon account for, I think, about a year and a half now, and we've been doing pretty well on there, and I want to thank everyone that's joined us, including our two newest patrons, Jacqueline and Niels. Thank you guys so much for joining us here in January. I really appreciate you doing that for us and putting some money out there to support our Lego collecting journey. It really does mean a lot, and it makes a big difference, so thank you guys for doing that. All that stuff aside, though, we're going to pick this episode up essentially where the last one left off. And if you saw episode 16, it was a good bit different than our typical podcast here. It was one that had Clarkman in it. And my goal in that podcast, that wasn't necessarily the plan for that week. If you guys missed that episode, Mrs. Brickitect got very ill Saturday night. She thinks it was food poisoning. And we'll be talking more about that a little bit later in this episode because I got it too. But I don't think it was food poisoning, but I had Clarkman on the episode. It was just going to be one where we were just checking in. I had some things that I wanted to discuss for the last week, and I didn't want to just skip an episode. And Sunday, unfortunately, wasn't a day that I could do it because it was she was sick all day, and I had Clark, and we were moving some stuff, and it was kind of a hectic day. So I did want to check in, and we did that. The podcast is a little short because in my attempts to interview Clarkman, it was the one and only time in the history of Clark that he had nothing to say. And I don't know if it was because it was super early in the morning or the fact that we did it before breakfast and he hadn't eaten yet, which I think that is probably the case because literally 2 days later, I did a live stream in the morning when Clark was eating an apple for breakfast. And he wanted to go live and I was like, all right, let's just set this up. And he literally talked for 30 minutes straight. I'm just like, he talk on this live stream where there's like 30 people watching, but the Missing Pieces podcast, which is going to be listened to by, well, I hope more than 30 people, ideally. That one didn't turn out so well, but it's okay. I found in my life that when you're dealing or working with or playing with small kids, anywhere from 2 to 5 in my experience, you really can't go into anything with a plan. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and the best thing that you can do is just roll with it and appreciate it as it comes, and that's kind of what I do on this channel and how I run it, because you'll find, I'm sure most people, and even myself when I'm making solo videos, it's always easy to be like, let me try that again. I think I can do that better. Let's do another retake. When you're dealing with a kid, it is what it is, and I find that it actually helps me because I am quite the perfectionist. In fact, every time I start these Missing Pieces podcast episodes, it's the hardest thing for me to do because I just want to get it just right. And sometimes, and I think the channels that I like to watch and the videos I like to see are where things are just more natural. You just let it fly, and if you make a mistake, you make a mistake. People realize you're human. You're not superhuman, and you can't do everything perfectly all the time. And I think that's very important to put out there because if you're trying to inspire people like Steve that are starting a Lego channel or whatever you're trying to do, if they think that they know that they probably can't do things perfectly. And if they see that you aren't perfect, it may give them hope that maybe they can do what you're doing. And I'm sure there's people out there that can do anything that I do better than me. So if you've seen any success that I've had, I guarantee that you can do better than this. So consider that. And don't let things discourage you from doing the things that you really want to do. Even if you don't think the thing you're going to make is good, go back. I always say this with hesitation, go back and watch my first 100 videos on this channel. If you watch those, you will be more motivated than ever because you'll know that you can do better than me. Anyway, there's my pitch to get you to start a YouTube channel. If there's one goal that I have in life, it's to get as many people to start a YouTube channel as humanly possible. Even people that don't want to start a YouTube channel, I'll somehow make you start one, hopefully. At least that's my goal. But let's move on to, that was Tuesday. And yeah, that started off a little a little rough, but we made it through the episode, and we did have that good good live stream. If you want to see that, it's on Brickitect Live. There's links below to all of my other channels, and you can see that it's our most recent live stream as of right now, the time I'm recording this. You can watch that, and it's about 30 minutes of Clark just talking about all kinds of stuff, and it was a fun little thing to do in the morning, and I really love doing those episodes. It was almost like lunch with my son, the thing that I originally wanted to do, and it actually worked, so very cool. Let's talk about Wednesday. That was the next day, and of course, Wednesday after Tuesday. Come on, Greg. I don't really edit these unless I get way off the rails. These are unedited. But Wednesday was the best day of the week for me. It was a day where I went up to the house. I think I dropped Clark Man off at Yammy's house. I went up to the house, and our new house. If you didn't know, we're moving. I think everyone knows at this point. And I rocked it out. I painted like a crazy man that paints pretty good, I guess. And I got the first coat done on the whole studio. It's brilliantly white. I got some new lights that I'm experimenting with that are a little less yellow, and I'm really happy with it up there. I was feeling really good that day. I did a live stream there as well right before I left, showing off all the things that's going on. So I really should say, and this is going to be a little more promotion, if you do want to see like the full spectrum of things that are happening in my life, I would recommend subscribing to Greg's World and Brickitect Live. That was a live stream on Brickitect Live since it was a studio, and I showed it all off. Things were good. I was feeling great. That was the last thing I did up there. I shut everything off. I came home. We did a Bricks and Bits podcast episode that night, which was Wednesday. Still feeling pretty good. And that night, I went to bed and things started going very wrong. Everything went from like really good. It was like an awesome day to like the worst day, which was that night and Thursday, because whatever Mrs. Brickitect had, at least I'm theorizing here or hypothesizing, whatever she had Saturday night going into Sunday, which we thought was food poisoning based on her symptoms, which I won't get into here, I had the same exact thing Wednesday night going into Thursday. Like it was terrible. I don't know how crafty I can be about this. I don't think that I've ever really needed 2 toilets at the same exact time, but it got very close to that. And I don't think I've ever had so much force. If you're watching this, I don't think I've ever been so forceful in my life. And it was awful. So Wednesday night was terrible. I ended up sleeping on the couch. Thursday was a complete write-off. Thursday was the day that I was going to go back up to the house, and it was going to be like coat number 2 on the studio, and at least like putting the final touches on everything that it was supposed to be up there. And Thursday was not that. Another plan that I kind of had for that day, if I wasn't going to go up the house, I was going to do some boxing here in the studio, or boxing up Lego sets. I should be more specific. I'm not getting into boxing, at least as of right now in my life. Not one of my goals for 2020. I do want to make a 2020 goals list. Being a boxer isn't one. An unboxer maybe, but Thursday nothing. That was the day that we did the little live stream on the couch, and that was about as productive as I got that day. I had nothing in me. It was literally nothing in me. No energy, nothing, and it was a really bad day for me. And I hate those days because I'm a guy that loves to get things done, and I almost base my worth on how much I get done, especially in the video world. Like I'm like, if I could rock out a Greg's World video and a Brickitect video that day and do a live stream, like that was a good day for me, and I got nothing that day. So although I did think we recorded maybe a Clarkman Minecraft review that day. I think I was able to kind of just set up with the camera and have that on him while I did his thing, and that was cool, but it was a bad day. And then Friday, I was feeling a little bit better, like a little bit, and the most I got done was boxing up the studio, which you saw the video on that. I got about maybe like 11 boxes done that day, which is pretty good. But as you can see, if you're watching this, if you're listening, I have a whole wall of stuff that still needs to go over here. And that kind of takes me to the next topic of this podcast, and I think what I'd like to spend the most time on, and I hope that there's other people out there that can relate to this, and I hope this doesn't come off as like unappreciative of what I have or whiny. It's just how I'm feeling in this moment, and some of this could be because that I'm moving, but I've been feeling this way for a while, and I may or may not have talked about it on this podcast, because I know when you're talking about your life, sometimes ideas tend to recirculate and come back around again. But I saw some comments on this because I talked about it briefly on Missing Pieces 16, and because things were so rushed with Clark Man, I couldn't get into it as much as I want to, but I think it was something that struck a nerve with people, and I actually have a few comments on it. And it's the idea of collecting, and specifically this concept that I've thought about a lot lately is the collections are a burden. The idea that a collection is a burden, no matter what you collect, even if it's something somewhat small, it becomes something that you want to have, and you get joy out of like acquiring whatever it is you collect. I'm not going to limit this just to Lego, because maybe you're listening to this and you collect a variety of things, or there's other things that you have. And I've seen this when I watch other people's videos as well. I don't want to put any names out there, but I've seen where people seem to really enjoy the act of collecting, but then the things you end up with through your collections, it really does become a burden. Like, it's something that you have to take care of. It's something you have to manage where it's at and how it's to make sure it's not degraded, or like how it's cared for. You have to, when you move, you have to box those things up and move them with you. You have to worry about it. You have to find space for those things. And it's something for me that is really causing me a lot of anxiety here in the brickitect studio with all these things that I have. And this is something that I've thought about quite a bit, where I don't think having these boxes is my idea of happiness and being a collector. My idea of happiness and being a collector isn't necessarily even the act of collection. It's the experience of creating, right? Like, what I love about Lego isn't getting the thing. I mean, a part of it is getting something cheap. Like, I like getting deals. Like, I think that's a big part of what I love, and that's kind of what's led me to have so many things that I have. Also, having a very generous fan base too has led to that, which I really appreciate you guys for doing everything for me that you have, and for us, because we've created a lot of content off of the Lego sets that you've sent us that I haven't had to spend money on, and that really does help, especially in these days and times with COPPA hitting. And I'm not going to talk too much about COPPA, because I think that's going to take us away from where I want this conversation to go, with the collections being a burden. But I do want to say how much I appreciate what you guys send us. And again, I don't want this to come off as unappreciative of the things we have, because I do appreciate everything. Not only the things that I bought, but the things that you guys have sent us as well. But I was saying that my joy doesn't come from looking at this wall of boxes. I mean, sure, I look over here and I see the memories that I have of these sets, and I think about the times that Clark and I sat down and we built that and made the video. But for me, it was the experience. It was the act of building the set. It was the act of being there. It was making that video, and essentially that video for me and getting the feedback on that becomes the thing that I cherish the most. It's the experience, the video, and the feedback. Those things are the things that I love about Lego collecting. Having the box sitting on the shelf is an afterthought. It's something that is a consequence of what I really love to do. And as time has gone by, I've kept acquiring, and sure, it looks really cool in the back of the studio. When people watch my videos, when we're sitting there doing a mail time, you can see all these cool sets back there, and it creates a really great backdrop. But when you do this for year after year, and these sets start compounding, and you have these shelves full, and then you buy another shelf and that shelf gets filled, and then you buy 2 more shelves and those get filled, it starts to get overwhelming, and it starts to create some anxiety in me that I have all of these things that are just like taking up my space. And even though that you may say, Greg, you're going into a space now where there's more space, now there is, but what happens 3 years from now or 5 years from now when I'm in the exact same spot that I am now? I don't want that in my life. I don't want my new space to be this. I don't want boxes to consume me. And you could say, Greg, just throw away the boxes. And I'm almost there. A part of collecting for me, I think a big reason that I collect these boxes is because someday I'm like, well, if I ever want to sell this down the line, it would be nice to have the box, and, I could, have it all complete and then sell it, and I've taken great care of everything, and it'll be worth more, but I'm never going to sell this stuff. Maybe Clark will someday sell it after I'm long gone, and it's like, oh, I got to get rid of Dad's crap. Again, the collection becomes a burden for someone else, unless he loves it too. But another part of it, I guess, is this dream that I have of having a Lego library where, and I've seen this happen. In fact, this week when I was sick, it's happened where Clark has come down here and he's just grabbed a Lego City set and taken it up and he's built it as though it's a new set. Slightly harder to do if you throw away the box, but I've gotten some suggestions from in a few comments here. And again, it was a very brief interaction that we had in the last missing pieces. So I would love to hear your feedback on this week, because I'd love to do a follow-up next week on this. But WV Curls, I thought, had a great suggestion here. The comment starts off saying, if you get rid of your boxes, what would you do with the Legos that you've built, taken apart and placed back in the boxes because you don't want to display them? I know for me, I've kept select boxes and collapsed them to save space, and then taken apart the Legos in plastic bags, similar to you, with the set number written on the outside, into a large plastic tote. Just more things to store, but less to dust. And for me, that seems like kind of like a decent solution. I could still have my Lego library, right? Like, I take all the Lego City. This is, if you don't understand the concept there, I would take all my Lego City boxes, and I would take the manual and put the manual into a Ziploc bag, which all these sets are already in Ziploc bags inside the boxes. I put the manual inside the Ziploc bag with the set, or in this case, I think they just write the set number on the front. And then they put all those into a tote. So a tote, if you don't know, is like a big plastic storage bin. So what this entire shelf takes up here could essentially be a tote that's much smaller, and then you could put that on a shelf by itself. And if you ever wanted to then rebuild a set, which is like my whole justification for having all these boxes here, essentially all you'd have to do is go to the Lego City tote, you pop that open, you kind of shuffle through, look for the set you're looking for, either by set number, or in my case, I would just have the manual in there. You pull that out and you build it. And you're accomplishing the same thing without taking up the space. And I'm really kind of drawn to that. To me, it makes a lot of sense, especially going forward, and especially if I continue collecting the way that I am, that would make a lot of sense. The reason that I don't collapse my boxes, I think if I were to do that, I'd probably just get rid of the boxes entirely. The reason I don't collapse my boxes is because I love having all the security tape on there. I like to keep it as official can be, with the exception of one side being opened, specifically the left side in my case. 100,000 subscribers, I'll tell you why I open sets for the left side, and you're going to be so disappointed when you find out the reason and why it's the proper way. But I'm kind of there. I've been boxing all these sets. I'm not committing to it yet. I've been boxing up all these sets, and I've been putting them into boxes to move, and I'm going to have to figure out what I want to do when I get to the new place. Obviously, I'm going to get up there with a ton of moving boxes and have to make a decision then. Am I going to put these back on display, which I'm hopefully not? Am I going to put them into storage? Am I going to keep them in the moving boxes, which I don't want to do? I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I'd love to hear your suggestions. I do think that for any really long-term Lego collector that doesn't have a warehouse or a storage unit, I think this is just inevitable. I mean, there are people, I'm sure, that, I have a 2-car garage. I could, Mrs. Brickitect would probably disown me, and I would probably be living out in the streets, but I could have us park outside and fill the garage up with boxes. I could, like I mentioned, get a storage unit. But if for that, and this is, I think, the biggest question you can ask yourself as a collector. And this pretty much is the answer to the question that I've been asking forever, and answers the question as to whether I should keep the boxes. Am I getting enjoyment from this? That's the question you should ask yourself anytime you're doing anything that you think you're doing for fun. Am I getting enjoyment from this? And the answer to having all these boxes everywhere, visually, yes, but am I getting enjoyment out of this? No. It's creating anxiety for me. It's creating like a burden for me. And that should be the answer as to whether I should keep these boxes. And I think it's going to change the way that I move forward collecting Lego. I don't know where I've talked about this at, because I do 2 podcasts and I do a lot of talking in my own brain, which is a great reason to do a podcast. If you're trying to just get it out there and you want to have like an audio journal, essentially, which is what I consider this to be. And this is, to me, is like therapy. I don't have a therapist that talks back to me, although I do a little bit in the comments, I suppose, thanks to WV Curls, which I should also mention Nick here, who also says, love discussion about boxes and buying sets in general. And this is going to be where I take this next. I'm needing to make some big choices soon. I can't go on buying hundreds of dollars worth of Lego anymore, nor can I justify all the space it takes up. So Nick, you're kind of where I'm at right now. I don't think I want to collect Lego the way that I've been collecting it in the past few years. I've come up with this new motto in the same way that collections are a burden. My other motto is creation over consumption. Let me say that again. Creation over consumption. I want my Lego experience. I'm not even going to say Lego collecting. I want my Lego experience to be creation over consumption. Many of the Lego channels you probably watch, and I think some of the most popular ones, and I'm not saying this is bad by any means. In fact, this is the way that I run my channel. they're about consumption. They're about buying things, buying the newest thing, making the review as quick as you can, putting that out there, getting the views. People love to see big hauls. People love to see the new stuff. People love to see the leaks. People love to see the news. People love all of that, and it kind of feeds itself, and I think a lot of those people feel like they need to do that. For me, my channel's never been based on that. It's never been about the sets with me, and I've said this so many times. It's about the personality for me, and that's why I love certain Lego channels that I watch. I don't care what Lego set they buy. I don't care if they get a set that comes out a year from now and they somehow got it faster than all of other humanity. Somehow they got in a DeLorean and got it. I don't care if they bought a set that came out in 1978. I love the fact that that person took the time to turn a camera on and to share why and how they bought something that means something to them. And the better that they do at expressing why they did it and the details behind it and conveying that feeling to me, the more I love their channel. And that's what I try to convey on this channel as well. I try to tell you guys not, that I got this thing, but why I bought it and that it was a deal, and show us enjoying it, which sometimes I guess gets us in trouble. Back to the whole COPPA thing. Maybe I should just throw it out there with COPPA. And I know this is all over the place because I'm trying to get like 4 things that I'm thinking about in my brain into one thing here. But any videos that I've put out with Clarkman in them, being that we are playing with toys and enjoying toys, the thing that I thought made my channel the most valuable because it showed someone's experience with their child, unfortunately, has turned into a weakness in terms of being made for kids, I suppose. So any videos that I have with Clarkman and I'm here on brickitect, being that it's toys and kids playing with toys specifically and the dynamic there, I've marked just for kids. Fortunately, you can do it on a video by video basis. I do a lot of solo stuff. Missing Pieces is an example. So you still will be able to comment on this channel. But in the case of videos with Clarkman, you can on there, which is not a huge deal. And I'm not going to stop making the videos that I want to make. And I've made this very clear every time that I talked about this. I'm not going to stop making the videos that I want to make because of some government entity or because of YouTube's rules. Even if those videos make half as much, which in my experience has been the case, it's not going to stop me. I don't do this specifically for money. I make a living doing this, but I don't do it for the money. I do it because I want to. And that's what I want to do. So you're going to see a lot, especially once Clarkman goes to school next year, you see a lot more solo stuff for me. And I'm going to make a whole video about what I want to do in 2020. That's not this episode. But you're going to see a lot more of what you've been seeing. And fear not, things are going to be okay here. It's going to be brickitect as usual. Just under some new guidelines. And unfortunately, I won't be able to get the thing that means most to me, which is the fan interaction and the community, which to me is the most precious thing on this channel. But we still have it, and it's still there and it's still alive. And I appreciate you guys for commenting on the videos you can. And I guess the best thing you can do on those videos is just leave a like on them. Let me know you were there. I appreciate that, or whatever else you want to do, however else you want to do it. But this creation over consumption thing, 2020 is, and I'll talk about this in the video that I want to talk about for my goals in 2020. I want to do a lot more creating of Lego stuff. I want to get things that are in my brain. I want to build those things. And I have ideas for mocks that I want to do. I have like 5 things that have just been running through my brain over and over again. And I just need to get them out there. And I need to stop what I've been doing, which is constantly getting sets, constantly just building a set. We play with it, and then we move on to the next thing, and then we build a set, we play with it, move on to the next thing, and then eventually see a breaking it down video where I tear the sets apart and they go on the shelf. That to me isn't ideally what I want to do in Lego. I want to build something that I'm proud of. I want to, that's unique to me. I want to get your feedback on that thing. I want to make it better based on that feedback. And then if there's something that I put on a shelf, I don't want it to be a box full of bricks. I want it to be that thing that I made that means so much to me. And I want to look over at that and have a sense of pride about it. And I want to thoroughly enjoy it. And I want these mocks to be like a symbol of what Lego is to me. Because growing up, my parents didn't go out and buy me all kinds of sets all the time. I had a big bin of Lego, or they were known as at the time Legos, and I would just build stuff all the time. I was creative with it, and hours, like the clock would be spinning, and that's what I would be doing. And I want to do more of that, and I see Clark getting into that, and I want to encourage that with him as well. And I also, a big thing for me going forward, I want to be the antidote to a lot of the other channels that you watch. The channels that you see that do $1,000 Lego hauls, the channels that you see that are always like spending lots of money on sets. And, I know it's cool to see and you can fantasize about what it'd be like to be in that position. And I could do that if I wanted to, I suppose. But I want to be the guy that shows you that you don't need a lot of money to have a lot of fun in Lego. I want to be the guy that's searching on eBay. I was going to say hunting, but it came out as herding. I want to be herding on eBay for Lego deals and finding cool stuff and building that and building my own stuff and taking things that I have and making new things and just like having an experience. And I want to show that you can do that too. I want to show that you can have a $50 Lego set and play with that dang thing for a month and still have fun with it. You don't have to, I've had people tell me like, oh, I don't have a backlog. I've got nothing to do. You have a lot to do. Go to your Lego collection, dump some pieces out and see what you can build with it. Like, I want to do stuff like that. There's so much. And again, I want to get a whole episode in about this. Like, that's just a small part of what I want to do going forward. But I think it could really encourage people because there was one comment that I got and I wish I would have saved it. And if you're this person, if you're listening to this, please let me know. Or if you feel this way, let me know too, because I'd love to share it next week's episode. Maybe you do feel discouraged when you see a lot of other people like having all these things. And maybe your family doesn't have a lot of money. Not everyone has $100 to spend on a Lego set right now that just came out yesterday, right? So maybe you need to see a guy that can take what he has and what he can do with it and prove to you that it doesn't come down to money to have fun with this hobby. As expensive as it is, you don't have to have a lot of money to enjoy Lego. And that's going to be my mission statement of 2020, hopefully. I will still, of course, get sets that I really love when they come out, but I think the things that I buy are going to be the things that I really love and can't live without, like things that I just need to have in my life. And I want to share that passion, but I also want to share this other end of things too. And we'll see how it goes. I think there's going to be a balancing point there. It's going to be a huge change of pace for me, but I just think it's where it needs to go, especially with feeling overwhelmed with what I'm calling my Lego hoard and having all these things and oftentimes buying stuff just because it's cheap and then having it. But maybe we'll still do that just because I do want to show you that you can get stuff on clearance and then take those pieces and put them in your collection and maybe make some other cool stuff. I don't know. I've got big plans and I'm definitely excited to bring you along with me on that. Little cut there as I take a quick water break to close this episode out on something that I really want to talk about. It's actually an email that I got this week, but to do that, I need to talk about something that I mentioned earlier in this podcast, and that was the fact that this channel is about our Lego collecting experience and not about the sets. And I've always tried to make it about that, but sometimes in that mission, I feel doubt sometimes, and it comes to me every once in a while, and even with these podcast episodes, I get this thing in my mind where I think, why does anyone care? Why would anyone care about me? Why does anyone... I'm already getting emotional, and I can't get emotional right now because I'm about to read this email. Why would anyone care about my experience? Why does anyone care about Clark? Why does anyone care about what we're doing together when there's so many other people out there that do everything that we do but do it better? And I got this email this week that really touched me and just made me feel that what I do here is valuable, and I really appreciate this. And again, I'm already getting emotional here, and this is going to destroy me because just reading this a few days ago, I was crying. So bear with me on this. I'm going to do my best and not turn into what this is probably going to turn into. If you're listening to this and you want to get out now, I totally understand. But I think this is a message that a lot of people need to hear, and I got Joe, who wrote this, permission to share this however I want, and I think this podcast would be a great place to do that. So this is where I wish it was an audio one. But Joe says, Greg and Clark, man, I'm 38 with a 5-year-old son, and we both love your channel. A little bit of history. 2 years ago, my wife and I went through the death of our infant daughter. Arguably the worst thing any person could experience. As a coping mechanism, I tried to become even more involved with my son, who was at the time 3. Fast forward a year later, he's now 4 and receives his first Lego set for Christmas. From there, it was on. We went pretty heavy into Lego after that, and that was when we found you. I could watch the joy of another father spending time with his boy, and my son could watch Clark build and spend time with his dad. For those 5 to 20 minutes, I wasn't depressed. I wasn't wondering why me. I was truly happy. It may sound silly, but I cannot begin to explain. Please hold. I'm going to get through this. It may sound silly, but I cannot begin to explain what your videos did for me and my relationship with my son. It's hard to stay sad watching Clarkman. Since then, Lego has moved from the back burner, but is still part of our lives. He likes the city sets and I do Ninjago. We still watch your videos and even join Patreon to support you, and have been enjoying the podcast. Please keep up the good work and thank you. Sincerely, Joe and Declan. And they included a photo as well, which they're a beautiful family. And my goodness, guys, I wanted to read that because I know there are parents out there that are listening to this podcast in particular, and maybe you haven't experienced the loss of a child, and I hope that you haven't, but just know that if you do have a kid, spend as much time with them as you can, because you never know when you're not going to be able to anymore. I felt like this story, it was incredible, and it gave me encouragement to continue doing what I'm doing here. It gave me the power to keep going. When I have those doubts in my mind that it's like, why does anyone care? I'm going to read this email. If you have a family, appreciate them. I've been listening to the Mr. Rogers podcast. I think it's called Finding Fred, while I was painting. And there was a story on there where he did a commencement speech at a graduation. And his speech was essentially like, just take some time right now and sit quietly and think about someone that's helped you along your way, or someone that's meant a lot to you, either growing up or at some point in your life. And then think about how much that means to that person that you thought of them. And that's what this email was to me. So on that, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me on Missing Pieces episode 17. I want to thank you all for being a part of my world. And we'll find you in the next Missing Pieces.